Hi everyone, welcome to this video. In this tutorial video, we will be using Hive. Hive is a alternate to SQLite. SQLite is a database solution that is supported in all major platforms. SQFlite allows us to access the device storage and save or persist data inside it. Now, in our case, we will be going with Hive. Hive is a database that has been completely written in Dart. And why Hive? If I go to this picture here, you can see the traditional SQLite in the blue bar and Hive in this purplish bar. Just see the speed comparison that we have between the two. Also, Hive is much easier to learn instead of going with SQLite. Now, with that being said, here in our project, I have made a basic Hive CRUD project. So you can just write flutter create basic _ hive _ CRUD. And in our pubspec.yaml, we have Hive, Hive Flutter, and path provider. You could get all the three packages from Dart packages here. Now, I've already run my app. What I want to do now is go to main.dart and remove everything here. So we are only left with an import line and a main function. Now let's make a stateless widget and let's name it my app, where I would like to return a material app. In the material app, let's pass a home as home, and let's make it a stateful widget, home. Now in the home widget, I want to return a scaffold firstly and then pass an app bar, where we have to pass an app bar widget with a title, and let's pass a text there that says Hive example or Hive CRUD. CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. These four are the main operations that you can perform within a data storage. To my knowledge, there isn't any other that exist, but if you know of something, please let me know down in the comments below. After that bar, let's pass a body that has a column. Column takes a children. Now what I want to do is have a button here and have a button of row here. I mean a row of button. So firstly, let's pass an expanded, where we want to pass a center that takes a child of elevated button. The elevated button is a child that has a text that only says show, and an on pressed with an empty function. Alright, now after the center or the expanded, since we are on the column, we can start putting things here. So after the expanded, before I do anything, let's copy this elevated button firstly. If I copy this elevated button and come after the expanded, I can pass a row here that takes the children, and let's just pass the button 3 times here. Now if I save it, you see we have the button here. Now for the row, let's pass a main axis alignment dot space evenly. Alright, now everything is alright for the UI. The only problem being, you see that my buttons are actually cutting off into the unsafe territory. To solve this, let's go to body, where we can wrap the column with a center, and let's change the center to be a safe area. Alright, much better now. Now it's final time that we get started with Hive. To get started with Hive, we have to edit this main function here. Now the operation that we want to do here is going to be unlike what we have done until now. This is called asynchronous function. To make this function into an asynchronous function, firstly let's pass a future here. Future that is of type void, and before the function body we have to pass async here. Why? because what we are going to be doing here before run app will require some time to complete. Those are not instantaneous. So let's start with Flutter widget binding. Widgets Flutter binding dot ensure initialized. Now it's time that we start working with Hive. Firstly, we need to make a directory object. Let's name it directory. Here, it's going to take some time to find out. So await get applications document directory. So what this is going to do is it's going to get appropriate document directory within the file system of our device, and it's going to be saved in this directory folder. Now we have to open hive.init. Here we are going to pass directory dot path. So our files or our state that is going to be persisted will be persisted in this directory here. Now lastly, let's open our Hive. To do that, let's await, because it's going to take some time, await hive.open box, and this box will contain strings. So a box of string, and let's name it friends. So these three were the line that you need for the Hive. This is the line that you must pass if you are going to do anything other than run app. Since we're opening up Hive in the main function, we have to pass this, and then we open up Hive. And since this work here is going to take some time, that's why we are using the word await. We have to turn our function into a future asynchronous function. Now with that, let's go down. What I want to do is, let's change this to create, this one to update, and this one to delete. What I want to do is, whenever I click this create button, I want a pop-up dialog to show up where we will have two text fields where we can pass an ID and a name, and then pass the values appropriately, and then the values will be shown here. Whenever we click update, I want to pass the key, the identifier, so that we can edit those values there. And finally for delete, whenever we click delete, again a pop-up banner will come up where we can pass the key, so that the primary key for that particular item is deleted. Now with that being said, let's go to this create, where we have show dialog. Show dialog takes a context and a builder. For the builder, let's pass a function where I want to return a dialog. Dialog has a child that should be a column or a container to begin with, or perhaps a sized box of height 200, and then inside the size box, let's pass a child where I want to pass a column that has children. Now the children, before we go further, let's click here. You see we have a dialog box of size 200. These children should have a text field. A text field where we can pass a decoration of input decoration. You can search Google or play around with this input decoration. You could really modify the text field that will be shown here in a number of different ways. Now with that being said, I want a label where it should say key, perhaps a text that takes a key. See, we have a key here. Also for this column, let's pass a padding, so we have some padding from both the sides. After that, let's pass another text field where I want to say value. Alright, now we have a key and a value, and then we need a button to submit. So let's pass a const sized box of height 16, and then let's take another elevated button. I'll just get this from here, where I want to say submit. Now if I save it, and click here, you see we have the key, and that's nice. We have a value and a button. Now the question is, we can write things here, alright? And if we press submit, nothing's gonna happen. Firstly, because we haven't hooked anything up with submit. Secondly, these text fields here are saving these strings nowhere, right? We don't have a variable that's saving this text field items. To do that, let's go up where we have our home state. And usually for the text field variable, we have a different sort of variable. So let's name final underscore ID controller. It's just the name. You can name it whatever you want. ID controller equals to text editing controller. So this will be the value for our key, and let's make a new one. Let's name it name controller, or perhaps the value controller, whatever it is. Now I can come to our text field here, and after the decoration it has a controller property where I can pass ID controller, and for this text field here I can pass another controller that's a name controller. Alright. Alright, now we have to start working with Hive itself. To start working with Hive itself, where we have our controllers, we need to make a variable. So let's make one. It's going to come later. It's going to be an uninitialized variable, so we're going to use the keyword late and then call the box of string, and let's name it friends box. Friends box. We are not initializing anything, we are not putting equals to anything here, so we are using this keyword here because the value is going to come later. Now after this we have init state. Init state runs before the screen is built. So inside init state, what I want to do is I want to set up my friends box variable that we have just made, and we can say friends box equals to hive dot box, where it should be the same name as our friends, what we have created up here within the main function. Also, this box should be a type of string box. With that, we are almost done. Now what we are going to do is come to our create button here, where we have the submit button. Let's get our values first. Alright, so now we have to get the values that we get inside here, and to do so, let's come to our submit button that we have, and let's make two new variables. So final key equals to this should be our ID controller, dot the text that stays inside it. So id control dot text. Lastly, let's get the final value equals to name controller, or was it a value controller? It's a name controller and the text that is inside it. Now what I want to do is I want to call my friends box dot put, and you see we have the key going to the key, the value going to the value. Now what we are doing now is we are writing things here, and then when we submit, the values that we have are going inside the database. What I want to do is I want this pop-up dialog to go away. So to do that, we have to call navigator.pop. Lastly, what I want to do is I want to clear the controller that we have, because the controller is not automatically cleared. I want it to be cleared. So here I can call id controller dot clear, and then also call the name controller dot clear. So what this is going to do is it's going to clear the controller that we have, the controllers here. Now if I save it, and if we rerun this again, let's create something here. Let's name it 0, and let's name it, let's say Mickey, and let's submit. Let's make one more, 1, and let's name it mouse. One thing you have to remember, whenever you're creating, make sure that you put the key as a unique value. So do not use zeros and ones again and again. If you do so, the previous value will be updated. You will not get a new value. Now what I want to do is, instead of this button here, it was just a placeholder, there is no work for it. I want all the names to come here. To do so, let's go up where we have our elevated button, and instead of this elevated button, what we want is we want a value rebuilder, right? Or a value listenable builder. So value listenable builder. Value listenable builder has 3 properties. Firstly, the value listenable. So the value listenable should be our friends box dot listenable. Secondly, the builder takes a function like always, and first it takes a context, then it takes a box of string that I want to name friends, and lastly it takes a child that we are not going to be using, so we are just going to pass this underscore. Now let's return a list view dot separated. List view separated has 3 parameters that you are bound to pass, so let's do so. What I like to do is I like to take this item count at the beginning and the item builder at the end. Now the item count should be friends dot keys dot length. Within the friends box, we have unique key for each of the items, so I want the length of total keys, so that should be the length. Now the separator builder needs a divider, so firstly let's pass a context and index. The context is unimportant, so since the underscore here, a divider, let's pass a const divider. Now for the item builder, we need a context and an index and a body. Within the body, let's return a list tile. For the list tile, we have a title. For the title, we have a text where I want to pass the name, and for the subtitle, I want to pass the key. Now, to do so, before we do anything here, let's make a final key equals to, should not give me an error. My bad. Alright, and then the final value should be friend dot get. This get method is coming from the Hive itself, where we can just pass the key to get the value for that key, right? We have the unique key, and for each unique key we have a value, so we can just go to friends and get where the key is equals to this key, and so we can get the value. Now for the title, let's pass the value dot to string, and for the subtitle, let's pass the text where we are going to pass the key. Now if I save it, you see we have Mickey that has a key of 0 and mouse that has a key of 1. We are not done yet. We can add more. Let's add 2, and let's make it Donald Duck, and let's submit it. See, you have 0, 1, 2. We have all the keys here. Now to update, we can come here where we have this show dialog. We can get this entire show dialog. And come to our update and pass it here. Why? Because create and update works the same. We can just come to update, pass the key for, let's say, 2, and we can name it Deadpool. And if I submit it, you see it's changed. So for creating and updating, Hive works the same way. Now lastly, for delete. For delete, we can come here and pass the same thing, but what we need to now do is we do not need this value text field anymore. The only thing we need is the key text field. Also, we do not need this value controller here. We do not need to clear the name controller anymore. And lastly, this function here is going to be different. So for this, we are going to access the friend box dot delete, and here we can only pass the key, and it will delete everything. Now, with that, let's save it. And if I come to delete here, I can pass 2 for the key for Deadpool, and if I submit, you see it's gone. So with that, we are done with this tutorial. Please practice at home to make things more clear. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.